Okay, so tonight we are here with Sean Robinson. Sean is pretty new into the endurance sports world, which is very exciting. And I was telling Sean, but this is going to be the first recorded episode with the intent of the endurance series. The other one was an encore episode with Lisa. So, Sean, I'm so excited that you're here to kick this off with us, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me, Courtney. I've been following along your first series, and it's funny. I felt very a lot more related to where you're headed with your show. So it's almost perfect timing for me here too.
Yeah, 100% agree. And you're coming from Toronto, and we were just saying that the Seattle Kraken are playing Toronto tonight, so it's like kindred kindred spirits here.
Yeah, no, I realized that just before logging on here. Like I was watching some of the game, like, oh, I gotta go.
Yeah, you do. Or do you live close to? Well, no, you're a couple hours from Toronto, so
Yeah,
you'd have to drive.
I could be there probably in about an hour and a half. I could be to the
Nice.
to the rink on a with no traffic, and Toronto's terrible for traffic, so it's usually bang on about 2 hours.
Gosh, yeah, no, I feel you there. Seattle traffic's just gotten worse. Now everybody's going back to office. It's kind of a bit of a cluster out here.
Oh yes.
So I know that you have a book that you wrote about your journey because you are sober. You've lost 100 pounds. You've had an amazing experience with really overcoming a lot of obstacles. But in terms of, so we can structure this conversation, I guess, in two ways: a bit about your background, a bit about your book, and then we can get into the endurance running because I think that sets it up really well. But now that you're sober, do you have like a moment that you can share where you knew that's kind of what you needed to set your life in this direction you wanted to go?
I that moment was kind of a compounding effect of a lot of moments and a lot of feelings. Always being like overweight a lot of my life, and just feeling with like no self-confidence and no um drive to do anything about it. I just, it was like an effect that I just kept building on, and through drinking and through terrible diets and just not caring about my health, it was easy for me to blame everything else. So that
Mhm.
moment kind of culminated at the end of 2020 when I found myself at 320 pounds, and just at my, I call it rock bottom, but it was just at my worst moment and needed something to change. I had no energy. I've got three young kids, and I just was miserable all the time. And it was kind of a lot of things. I made a decision to remove alcohol from my life, and yeah, I wrote about it in a book, and basically shared my journal from that period where I tried to get rid of it, and then just kind of segue into more, fitness and diet, and just kind of see how I feel.
Mm-hmm. So I see the diet came after the going dry, and you're like, wait, if I feel really good now, what if I keep going?
Yeah, so when I started to do that, it was a New Year's resolution, and it was like, well, let's just see if
Mm.
I can do dry January, and then January became February, and then 100 days. And when I was creeping on 100 days, I thought, like, there's no way I'm ever going to do a full year. I'm already this far. Why don't I try and do 2021 completely sober? And
Wow.
in there, just all the challenges. My buddy was getting married, and I was in his wedding, and he kept telling me, you better drink at my wedding, you better drink at my wedding. And just like not sure where I was headed, how long I was going, and just kind of challenging myself to get, to try things I'd never tried before. I'd been drinking or living like the same lifestyle since like early teens, and not really thinking much about it. And at 36, when I started, it was like just challenging who I thought I was to not do those things or to do something different. So yeah, removing alcohol, journaling through that first year, and then self-publishing my book from the journal about the challenges and what I went through that, going sober, and different things that I had tried during that period. And then the extension from that is kind of where I've gone to since, is like, yes, doing this running, getting more in shape, losing that weight, just becoming more positive, and continuing with the theme of doing things that I didn't think were for me before,
Mm.
or that are going to challenge who I thought I was before.
It lights me up when you say I didn't think these things were for me, because that's how I've framed this mindset shift, right? Because you grow up and you see the athletes. You grow up and even now you have friends that run and you're like, I don't look like them. I don't have behaviors like them. I don't have habits like them. So this isn't for me. But then you completely pivot and you're like, wait a second, what if I just try? And you're
Yeah.
like, maybe it could be. And then it is for everybody that wants it. That's the thing. It's like you don't have to look like them to be able to do it.
That's right. And like getting into the endurance stuff and away from, because I found a lot of the feelings and the I don't belong here and the is this for me, with not drinking alcohol in a bar with when I'm in
Mm,
that environment. I felt similar to, being in that and running in the neighborhood. Like forget even the organized race for a minute, but just running around the neighborhood and just all the windows. And I'm picturing like everybody standing in their window as I'm, running by, and my
mhm.
form is off or my speed is off or I'm 300 pounds and I'm not doing it right, or whatever version is going through my head. It's like just everyone watching me and not feeling like I should be doing it, and just pushing through that feeling that I had, and just kind of forgetting about it, turning the music up or whatever I was listening to, and just do it and forget about everybody that might be hanging out their window.
Yeah, you're doing it only for you. Like there's nobody else. Well, you and your kids and your family, but it's like, but
Yeah.
nobody else's opinion even should have stock in that. And I really love that. But yeah, like it does feel like if I run around the lake in Seattle and people are passing me, I'm just I'm a little bit down on myself, but then I remember that they probably have been running since they were in high school. In my
Mhm.
10 9 minute pace is great for somebody that literally started running a couple years ago. So
That's
I'm
right.
happy. Yeah, I'm happy that you started. That's so good for your writing your book. I know you said you published your journals, but it's still a process of getting it all together, making it make sense to somebody that's reading it. Do you have any sort of writing background, or are you an imposter there too?
No, I definitely felt it out of place there too. I'd always did well in school, and I never kept a journal because I work, I'm an electrician and
Mm,
volunteer firefighter, and a very toxic masculine background and space, and we don't talk about that stuff in those environments, and journaling. And there's just a lot of, actually I just wrote in a blog last night, I posted on my website about journaling and where I was with it. And that was not something, like writing was not something that I did for fun or leisure.
mhm,
The it started because of just how I was feeling mentally at that 320 pound moment. And it was like I just needed somewhere for the thoughts that people were tired of hearing, or I felt people were tired of hearing, that I could put whatever down and beat myself up and say the things I was going to say or write it. And then I could reflect on it if I wanted to. I could add to it if I wanted to. I could light it on fire and it'd be gone. Like it was just kind of a place for me to outlet. And then as I made these decisions and set these goals, and without even knowing they were goals, it was just me trying to get from, here to the end of January, February, whatever. And then different things. Like I set a goal to try to brush my teeth twice a day for this 100 days, when I started to learn about that lifestyle change, and tracking it on the calendar and journaling about, how these things were going that I was working on. It just,
mhm,
that journal through that whole process of the year that was, and I'm still not drinking, but for the purpose of my book, it was that break for a year. And it was taking all of that journaling that I maintained through that whole process, and everything that I went through, and just my buddy's wedding, and my brother asking me why I can't have a beer because did you not get your coin yet? Like just some real insensitive moments that, maybe it's just people weren't thinking that it was as bad as it was, but taking
mhm.
that journal and then deciding that I shouldn't sit on it, because I needed that when I was getting started. I needed a version of that when I was wondering how to, figure it out and get started and do the 30 days or whatever. So I made the decision to get someone, that I hired someone to help me with editing and different things. And then I self-published it in a way to kind of give it back to where I used to be when I started, to kind of help someone that I know it's a common thing. So it was kind of reaching out to who I used to be to help, if someone could use it.
And it's called Going Dry.
Yeah, going dry, my path to overcoming habitual drinking. I kind
Okay.
of focus more on the habit and routine
Yeah.
form of it, that I just felt I had to have it in certain moments at certain times, different kind of moments like that. It was definitely holding me back from seriously being on a diet, or getting on an exercise thing, or running. It was part of a process that held me back, and I didn't realize it until I didn't have it anymore.
Yeah. So the year though that you basically journaled for a year, you tracked it for a year. Are you planning, do you think, on making a second book, writing a second book? I don't know if you journal still, but even your continued journey is very inspirational.
I've got a few ideas of where a version two could go.
Hmm.
There's obviously been so much with the diet and weight loss, and then just like my relationship with my family, my kids, some generational traumas and stuff, like
Hmm.
some toxic masculinity. Like there's a lot of the different podcasts and stuff I've been on. There's so many different themes because of the variety of what I've been able to achieve personally in these 3 years. So the next book I've thought about, and I probably will. Journaling, I have kept some journaling, and I've never been the type to journal every day. Like it was not something that, like, every morning in my routine I had to make sure I journaled. It was more once something happened, or I thought something, and more of a reflection as I went on. So I've done that still, and with my website and my blogs that I've been putting, and then just with my video stuff on TikToks and whatever. It's just a lot of more video blogging
Right.
and written blogging form of journaling. So to answer your question, there's definitely thoughts of where I could go with a second book, but I'm not quite sure where I want to narrow, or if I want to make something a
Mhm.
little more broad to capture more of it.
Right. You have the other mediums though, so that's great. And you
Mm.
continue to go on podcasts and like talk about your journey. Are you familiar with a man called David Goggins?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, we were back and forth a bit about his book on Instagram. Um,
Oh,
I,
right.
I
That's
li-
right. We were.
yeah, I listened to both of his books. Actually, the first one I listened to 2 or 3 times, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you just finished that one, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
did. And your story, so your story reminds me of his journey a little bit and what you can offer in the same light, but with like a different counterpoint, in the fact that he is very so I honestly, like, I really did love his perspective because it's different than my own, on I
Mhm.
need to be all that is man, and I need to do this because I cannot show weakness. And then yours is the approach of it's absolutely okay to show feeling and emotion and what I'm thinking, and it's okay to fail sometimes.
Mhm.
But they do kind of toe the line together, your journeys. And I don't know if you've kind of felt a little bit of a kinship with him, but just like in a different way.
I have, for sure, and while it is very hard to compare to David Goggins, like he's up there, a world of his own, and
Mhm.
pushes as hard as he does, and it's very inspiring. It's very intimidating,
Yeah,
because
agreed.
to hold ourselves to that level is we should aspire, all the things that we should hope for ourselves. But my thing with him was I can push myself a bit more because of how much he's able to do. So when I especially running some of these marathons, half marathons, whatever, it's like, I can push a bit more in those moments, and I keep those in my cookie jar, as he calls it,
Yeah.
uh, right, to kind of pull out in those moments, to say, like, this guy did his third tour buds training on, shin splints and broken feet or ankles, whatever. And it was
Literally
like,
broken leg. Yeah.
yeah, I can push a bit harder in this organized street, marathon because of what he went through. So I've definitely felt inspired by his content for sure.
Yeah, a girlfriend of mine said the same thing. She's really into like ultra marathons. And she said, when I feel like I can't go on, I think of David Goggins. And I was like, I guess he has a time and a place for everybody. It's great.
Yeah, I
He's
got
quite the
through
man.
He is. I got through his second book, and I was listening to the audiobooks because I've got about an hour commute to work each way, so I get a
Mhm.
lot of time to listen to a lot of content. And I finished the audiobook, and I went to my brother-in-law. I was like, "Oh, we gotta sign up for an ultra or some
Yeah.
marathon." He's like, "Let's just let's do something, but maybe let's not go that far."
I recommend it, honestly. I had a blast. Ultras are very fun.
I'm sure I'll get there if I keep going the way I'm
Yeah.
going. But I think in that moment, he just wasn't ready for how fired up I was, having just finished Dave's book.
Yeah, it does light a fire.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You've definitely talked about your past traumas, and there is research that shows the connection between those who have suffered past trauma and then go into endurance sports, because you're effectively breaking your body down physically when you are, in the past breaking it down emotionally in traumatic ways and mentally. So I definitely can see the links, but I suspect that they go hand in hand for you too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I definitely feel that. I know a lot of the time when I was growing up and just being overweight a lot as a kid and finding myself at that 300 pound whatever, it was like I was lifting weights to me was always intimidating. I never really knew what
Mm,
the sequence was. There's so many different exercises and things and different angles and machines and free weights and it was always very intimidating. So I always found myself comfortable with cardio. And even though they say don't always do cardio, it was like, well, but cardio is where I feel comfortable. And cardio is, I don't want to say it's easy because it can be because you do what you can do if it's just a walk or if it's just if you can get to a point you're jogging or running or whatever. But for me it was easier because I knew how to do it. I
yeah.
didn't like need a ton of coaching or to try and do research. It's still very intimidating to do it without a coach or a trainer. So yes, I agree. It was probably a bit of a trauma response and why I felt comfortable doing it. But it was also just because of that, like, person that I was in that moment that just was going to something that I didn't need to feel vulnerable with somebody because I didn't know how to do the weights or I didn't feel comfortable with whatever version of training I probably should have been doing.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of that too, where if you want to see results, whatever results mean to you, you need to weight train, you need to, but I am kind of the same prescription as you, is just move. And
Mhm.
if it's something that you actually enjoy doing and you feel comfortable doing, then you're going to be consistent with it. And consistency matters over everything.
Yeah, it's like they say don't do a ton of cardio, but if you're doing cardio versus nothing,
Yeah,
do
it's fine.
cardio.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's good for your
exactly.
heart.
That's right.
Is really good for your body, even though that's not maybe not why you would lose weight, but it's so good for you mentally, anyways.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
I have three young kids, so it was
Oh my
out of the
gosh.
house. It was getting out. Uh, it was
Yeah.
quiet. I could listen to a lot of different shows and a lot of different music and whatever I was into.
Yeah. And you can keep up with them a lot better now, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I so much more energy and I'm so much more
Yeah.
interested in playing, soccer and hockey. Like they're under 10. They're just three under 10, so 10, 8, and 3. So
Gosh, that's so
it
much work.
it's busy. And when I was, in 3 years ago before any of this started, just miserable and no
Yeah.
energy. Like it just wasn't, I didn't feel good and I didn't feel good about the version I was giving them either. So
Yeah.
it's definitely been better that way.
Yeah. That's so good. I love it. With your half marathon you started with, right? That was the first race you signed up for, was a half?
No, well, that was the first like real test. The first one I did was in the spring. It
Mm.
was a 5K. So I don't know what that is in miles. I looked
Like
up what the other
3.1,
one. Yeah, 3.1. So
I
I did a
think.
5 kilometer. It was in April, and it was part of an organized run club near where I live. And basically, I just got to a point where I was like, because I had been running around like the cottage, roads, or
Mm-hmm.
around my neighborhood. Like I had gotten to a point where I felt comfortable being out. I wasn't so worried about the people in their windows. I got my own frame of mind, had my own like focus on. I started to learn about how, we're not racing against anybody else. It's against ourselves, and just
Yep.
finishing the race and getting the rhythm and your breathing and all of the things that include in running and hiking and climbing and all of that. I was starting to feel a lot more comfortable, but I was like, well, I can't, I don't know, or running an organized event, like that's not for me. I'm not that person. I don't belong there. So I signed up for this 5K, and it was, this nice first big spring race in April. It was going to be um it was just a true test for me. I was like, I'm going to do it because I've never done this before.
Yeah.
And I think I finished it in like 36 minutes or something.
That's actually a really good
And,
5K.
and jogged the whole thing, pushed. It was, I was so uncomfortable because I'm looking around, and university town where I work and where this was, it was like, um, a lot of students. So it was a lot of like younger people,
Mm,
and just looking around, not feeling really like I belong there. But I'm determined. I'm going to do it anyways. And for some reason, I thought that you couldn't listen to music or you couldn't have your headphones in when you raced. I saw that somewhere, and so I trained leading up to it, not listening to anything, and feel like I struggled a bit because it just I find that listening to something keeps me focused. It distracts me. So, I did it, and then it just I had to have more. I had to try it again. I had to see if I could beat it. And I signed up for another 5K a month later. It was a mental health charity one, so it worked out kind of both ways. And that one I drove by myself. The first one, my family was there, and like it was a really cool moment where they got to see me like coming down that final stretch and cross the finish
mm-hmm.
line and get some pictures. And and the second one I did by myself, and was just I didn't have anybody to talk to leading up to it, and just standing there, and I didn't know anybody else. And because I didn't come from this space, there's no way I was going to know anybody else. And it was
Yep.
like not right in my own town, but within half an hour. So if this was something I was used to doing, I'm sure I would have seen somebody. And no, it was very awkward. Um, so then the third race, which would have been October, I just had it a couple months ago. That was the half
Oh,
marathon.
this year. Wow.
So I went from April 5K, May 5K, then October was the half marathon. That was kind of the next big test for me to kind of, and I thought, Canada, October, it's about we're looking at cooler temperatures, except when I did the half marathon, it was like and I did the conversion, it was like 95 degrees Fahrenheit. It was 36. It was not a typical October. So
Wow.
the race had they didn't plan for that, so water ran out. They had issues with, it was still kind of post COVID planning, so they had bottles of water at every station, and people would just grab a bottle, take a few swigs, and chuck it, so they ran out. There was some difficulties, and for my first marathon, not really having a concept for that distance other than I
Yep.
ran around the house or neighborhood doing that. um, there was more challenges that I didn't really plan for. So but that signing up for that and getting to do that was a big weight that I wanted to lift because I felt like I could do it. um One thing, and I took notes actually because I didn't know anybody, but this one, they loaded us on a bus. Everybody that was in this thing, was multiple buses, and they took us about for like a 20-minute, half an hour drive, whatever it was, because you ran along this like shoreline, and you went from like one small county to the next, and there was no like big circle. So you took this bus and you rode this half an hour, and I knew the neighborhood, but I wasn't really sure where the start line was. And then we're there for like 45 minutes or an hour while we wait for the kickoff. And I'm looking around and not feeling like I belong there at all, kind of
Yeah.
taking my notes and just like waiting anxiously for this thing to start, wondering if I'm going to be able to finish it. Just all of those
Mhm.
thoughts and things going through my mind as the kickoff was coming up, and it was just like nobody that I knew was there. There was hundreds of people there, but like I was all by myself, alone, and then feeling like I don't belong here. I'm looking at all like the tall, skinny runners that have been doing it their entire life. And I'm like, that's not, and I know like you have to start somewhere. And I felt very confident in that moment and I had trained for it, but it was a lot of like, these people are going to find out I don't belong here. Someone's going to talk to me and I'm not going to, know what to answer them. There's gonna be some runner lingo I don't know about yet or something. I was just not
Exactly.
gonna
Yeah.
not gonna know what to say.
What the hell's goo? Yeah.
Right.
And why are you
Actually,
eating it?
I had somebody like the day before when I picked up the race kit. I was like, they were selling the things, and I was like, is this like, should I have some of these? Do you recommend these? Yeah, they people use them. Like you want them, and they were really good to kind of give me some info on them. But up until that moment, I hadn't really tried them, and I had a
Mm.
few with me, and because of the hydration issue and just how I felt, I was really glad I did.
Oh man. And when you're running, your body is acting in ways, at least for me and a lot of, I guess, other runners I've read about on Reddit, your body is acting in ways that it doesn't ever act outside of running. Like your body is working so hard for you, but then you get things like, pardon my French, the running shits. And you get, things like really bad headaches, and you never get a headache. And it could be
Mhm.
dehydration. It could literally be that you got hungry because you were waiting 45 minutes to start and you ate something that you don't normally eat before a run. Like I have to be so very strategic because my stomach is so sensitive. And I'm like, I will be in the woods for half of the race if I don't dial this.
Oh yeah, yeah. There was leading up to it, and thankfully there was a whole like line of porta potties. But I was glad I went early enough because everybody wanted to go after. Right, everybody was doing that pre-race thing that they do. But there was a big lineup, so it would have been very uncomfortable if I missed that opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely would have, especially in a town. There's not really many places unless like the businesses agree to let you use the restroom, I suppose. But
Yeah, they had a few um porta potties kind of littered throughout. I don't know what the distances were,
yeah.
but there was definitely, a few. Because it wasn't right, it wasn't through a town, but like it was in a county, and portions of it were populated, but then you had like some countryside, and it was a really nice run for the the background and stuff. The heat, not so much, but yeah, they had a few kind of along the path, so you could use them, but they were lined up too, right? I didn't need them,
Hmm.
luckily, but there was definitely some people using them, and while I wasn't I was more focused on finishing, especially when it was that
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah.
But it was definitely more about finishing than it was beating any kind of time. I didn't have a benchmark for myself. I do now. Like I finished it. It was 2 hours, 45 minutes.
Hmm.
So now I know what I need to beat next time.
Hmm.
And it was, yeah, it was just about finishing. I just wanted to even with that heat, I needed to just make sure that I got to a point where I could cross that finish line no matter what time it took me, because I was determined I was going to finish a half marathon this year.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that your final time is like maybe a minute off of, I think I was like 2 hours and 46 minutes when I did my first half marathon. And then there was a fluke of a year that I did 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I was like, I don't know how the hell I did that, but I don't know if I can replicate that. But now my goal is under 2 hours. And I know that that's hard.
Mm.
It's like you have to break it down like 13 miles. And that's just a really fast pace that I can't keep up. I'm not a
Yeah,
fast runner.
especially if it's 95 degrees, that wouldn't be good.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I signed up for a half marathon at the end of April, and then I was so excited because it's going to be nice and chilly. But then every time I do this and I forget that you have to train in the winter for that kind of stuff. Like it depends, like the training is what you really have to think of. And I was like, well, shit, that's going to
Yeah,
be cold.
that's where I'm at now, because the 5K that I did originally, it's part of a like a race weekend. So they
Mm-hmm.
have a 5K, a 10K. They do I think a 1K for the kids. Um, whatever I don't remember the age group, but and then they've got their half marathon. So when I got through that one in October, and I remember kind of the weather from that first one I did, um, it was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. And yeah, same thing. I'm like, oh, I gotta do the training over the
I could
winter.
train. Yeah, and you're from farther north than me, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Toronto's farther north than Seattle, but you guys probably get a lot of snow.
Yeah, it's we do sometimes some years. Like some years it's like I remember as a not quite because I needed it, but as a joke, I cut my grass on Christmas Eve, a few years ago because I was with my boys. They were very young, had toy lawnmowers, so we were kind of joking, got some silly pictures cutting the grass on Christmas Eve. But then, other years, yeah, it's just last year it was actually the county where I ran the half marathon was like shut down because of snow Christmas.
Mm. Yeah. Do you remember what your most painful mile was during your half?
The most painful was probably about the halfway point, maybe about the 9 mile, maybe a little more than halfway. Um, because I felt really good. I had my waist belt, and I have since bought, a vest, the water, so I won't have that problem again. But
Mhm.
I had a belt with a couple small bottles on it, and basically you tried to ration it, used one up in the first half. I had one of the little the energy packs, but then because of that heat, I struggled about the 9 mile mark, and I really tried to push, and I did. I was able to push a bit more than I needed to. I still felt good, but I got more in my head about not finishing,
Yeah.
because like I've been on a volunteer fire department for 20 years, and I've been around a lot of like medical, incidents over the years, and I got into my own head about heat stress and not being able to finish. So I definitely let myself not take a break. I didn't sit down, but I just let myself walk for a bit, get a little bit more hydrated. I actually planned it with the shade of the trees so that I could kind of jog or run in between like the sunny parts, and then just kind of enjoy more of the shade for that few seconds or few
That's
minutes.
smart.
Um,
Hmm.
it was for me, it was just I was more proud of being able to finish it than beating any kind of time. So that hard part for me was definitely after I got through that first bit, through that first water bottle, and got to a point where I just 9 mile range.
The feeling afterwards, after finishing, regardless of time, like you cross the finish line for a split second. I think that so many people, this is why I think people should run, is you feel like you can do anything. And then you
I,
sign up for a marathon.
yeah, that's kind of,
The full.
you always kind of regret it in the moment, but
Mm,
it was such a special moment crossing that finish line for both my own personal goals and development, but like my family was there, my wife, my three
mm,
kids, and my wife was really cute. She had the kids do up signs. So they
mm.
colored these little signs, and they actually did it for my first race, the 5K that I did. And so like I'm crossing the finish line, and as I'm getting close, and like there's all these people on the side, like I can kind of see the bundle of them, and I go over as I'm running, and I give them each high fives, and they've got these little signs that say "Go Dad," and I cross the finish line, and then they kind of come over, and they just gave me this like finish medal after I was done, and then I like each of my kids wanted to wear it, so like each of them was kind of taking a turn, and it was really cool for them to see me do that,
Yeah.
especially because like that wasn't who I was before, right? So this
Yeah.
person now that they see, and being, my daughter at 3 years old, probably she'll remember, but through pictures more than anything. But like my 8-year-old, 10-year-old boys that like are influenced by this stuff, that's going to be huge for them. And I didn't have that when I was growing up. The most I had was, beer league baseball and hockey, like different things my
Mm.
parents did that were very much around like the social part of it versus the sports part of it. So that was a lot of the reason I didn't have that like influence to then grow up and become, into sports or with confidence to do these things. It was so like really cool for me to be able to share that with them, but then also give me that and them that at the same time.
So you didn't run. in high school or college or anything. We didn't really, I guess, touch on that. What's your sports background?
So sports background, I was always active. Like a kid, we always played hockey in the driveway, basketball in the driveway, just like we were outside all the time. I played like house league sports, hockey, baseball, just basically I don't know if you call it the same thing, but you just everybody that wants to play can play, and the teams are kind of fair, so anybody can play. You don't have like it's not like a rep team or
Oh yeah,
um
I think it's recreational here, like rec
so yeah,
leagues.
like a
Yeah,
exactly. So like a rec league where so
yeah.
like there really wasn't a lot of pressure to be good or to, like anybody could play. So I felt fine in that world. It was good. I didn't want to, make my parents pay a bunch of money to put me in these other teams. And it was like a comfort zone. I could still play, but I didn't have to
Yes,
perform.
stretch. Yep.
And then like so I didn't try out for other teams because I just wasn't feeling very confident. I didn't want to get turned down, show up and try out and then not make it and just have that that feeling. So I really I wore it mentally probably more than I needed to. So growing up, I played the recreation sports. I played like pickup hockey, which is just for fun. Any group that wants to go out and play. Usually my buddies would put on a group. We'd go and when the water would freeze over, play some old school hockey on the lakes or whatever. And
Mm.
that was kind of the extent of it. When I started going through like in different versions of diets and exercise, as my yo-yo diet through my life kind of went, it was like I'd use that cardio, like I said earlier, because it was comfortable. I could
Yep.
go there and I could know that if I was going to walk or I was going to run or I was going to do any of these things for cardio fitness, it would help me lose weight. It would help me feel better. And it did, but it just wasn't with whatever else I was doing at the time. It just wasn't sustainable. So I'd find myself back up again.
Yeah, and you don't prioritize it. And that's the thing too that I find with folks that have grown up with sports is they have the mindset and the mentality already to prioritize it. They like know how to fit it into their schedule. They know that they have to. They know that they have to train to get better. And as an adult, you are learning all of these things, so you have to so quickly, but it's also not already in your schedule. It's not already something that you would just normally be like, yes, of course I have to. If I want to train for a half marathon, I'm going to have to run this many miles a week, but you have to have time for that. And you have 3 kids. So
Yeah.
it's just not something that you're used to.
No, and even just something as like what to use for equipment, right? Like there's so
Mm,
much online, but like when you go and buy a pair of running shoes, there's more than just buying a pair of running shoes.
yeah.
When I ran the half marathon, I had a pair of Solomon, running shoes, and I thought they were supposed to be good. And they were, but they were older, they were worn. So I ran the half marathon with these like pitiful shoes, I'd find out later. And my feet were sore, like they were like
Mm.
blisters everywhere, sore. So I went into one of the sponsors for a lot of the local races, one of the shoe apparel companies, small business. I went in there and I was like, I don't even know what to ask for. Like, can you help me? Like, I got all these blisters. I know there's going to be some of that, but this can't be this bad. And this woman working there, she like watched me walk, found out which like angle my feet was on. I tried a bunch of things, like really, really thorough, you know, uh, helping me find these shoes. And after I tried some, it was like walking on pillows. Like I didn't even. I'm more eager to try another. I've ran a 10K. I ran a 10K beginning of November, beginning of this month, which was my last organized one, and I had those shoes, and it was so much better. Like
Like a cloud.
I'm eager to do a half marathon in April just for that feeling on my feet and not being 90 degrees.
Yeah. Yeah. See, it's only up from here.
That's right.
It only gets better. But you do have to suffer. That builds some character. I think that's probably a David Goggins quote.
Yeah, yeah.
Suffering is it's needed. It's part of the whole recipe of it.
And there's no
But
shortcuts.
there's no shortcuts. Yeah, that's true. One of my one of my personal mountaineering heroes, Ed Vestier. He's a Seattle guy. He has a book, No Shortcuts to the Top. And it's so true. There's no shortcuts.
No,
Like if
you
you
got to
want to
work
do it, you
for
got to
it.
do it. Yep.
Yeah.
You got to do every step. Uh so you did mention you get to the end of the line and we feel very accomplished, you feel very accomplished, and obviously running has changed your life in a lot of ways. How has it helped you outside of running for your belief in yourself?
I can do this. Like it really gave me that confidence to say that to myself and mean it. And even though at the beginning of that, and it was kind of a cool thing that I did with not having anyone to talk to and not knowing anybody leading up to the half marathon, having my phone, because I ran with it in my pocket because I didn't want to put it in that belt thing I was wearing.
Yeah.
So I had my phone and I took notes in my phone, and then I took notes after, just kind of like how I felt going into it, how I felt coming out of it, and just like all of the things, the spotlighting that I did, that everybody's looking at me and everybody's judging me when nobody knew I was there, right? Just the thing that I think is natural that we do.
Mhm.
We feel everybody's watching us, and then just like comparing myself to others and doing all of those things and feeling like I didn't belong and
Mhm.
all my self-doubt, like all of the things I felt leading up to that race. And then just like afterwards, how all of that went away because I knew I could do it. I knew that I did it. And like crossing that finish line, even for those 5Ks and for the 10 and anything else that like we can push ourselves to do, it's like getting to that point, we test ourselves and we get there, and then it's like that confidence builder that we create. And I've taken that into a lot of other things, like, and especially because of how much I've been able to work on with my development, it's like all of those things help me get to that point too. So carrying kind of the habit structure and testing myself and trying things I've never tried before, and allowing myself to entertain or think about being something that I wasn't used to before, has carried me into these other things to learn what I do and don't like through our influences and through my influences. It was like I believed what I believed, I knew what I knew, I liked what I liked because that was what I had around me for my whole life. That's what people around me were doing, that's what my family was doing. It was like, we do those things, we like those things because that's just how we're developed. But
Mhm.
you may not know that you are an artist, you may not know that you are someone that can journal, or that you're a runner, or that you're
Yeah.
into climbing. It's just we don't know these things because they weren't part of who we were before, and we weren't open to trying them until we were.
And now you're just so much more adept at trying new things. It's like because you've been in very painful spots with your body and mentally. So it's
Yeah.
it's like you can overcome so much more. I love that a lot. Where do you find the motivation to keep running? So you did sign up for a marathon, you said.
I signed up for another actually. So I'm going to sign up for the half. It's not open yet for
Mhm.
April. And then I want to challenge myself to the full marathon by October, which is the one that I just did. So
So a
the
year from now, about.
a year, yeah, about a year from now, I'm thinking if I can, train through the winter, see what that's like, for the April half. And then I signed up for a run club that they have a bunch of different events. There's a bunch of different you know hill climbs. There's different distances, there's different challenges. One, like, you can run in pairs, so see if I can find somebody for that. But there's different events that they have, and there's different run clubs that they do, like Monday nights or Wednesday nights, and they do socials after. So like there's a very, very uncomfortable future for me to go out with people I don't know, and I'm gonna push myself to start doing some of these things, just to meet some people that otherwise wouldn't have met before. and
That's so
and
good.
it's in an effort to both come outside of the shell that I've been in, but also to get to that point where, because I've already been learning off of, like, I haven't not been talking to people about it. So,
Hmm.
going in and being in these environments, surround myself with the people that I'm trying to be more like or to learn from. I'm going to learn about the shoes. I'm going to learn about the energy packs. I'm going to learn about hydration and things that we won't find online because the different versions of what everybody else is doing. And in that, conversation and in that environment is where we're going to pick up a lot more than, we would have if we didn't do any of this stuff.
Yeah. It sounds kind of like a big hurdle for you is the social aspect of it, right? Because you are there and you don't know anybody. You've said that a lot. And then you're trying to find people with like a mind to pursue running in, in competitive ways, like a race. Do you think that's been your biggest hurdle is like just you running is a solo sport. It really is, but you want camaraderie. So it's just like hard mental game.
Yeah, I think so. I think like the 10K actually, I met someone. I didn't realize that this person was running, but someone through work that they look after some projects at one of the hospitals we work at, and he was involved, and I saw his name on one of the sign up sheets, and I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like, are you like, this is you, right? And so we were kind of talking, texting back and forth leading up to the 10K that I did just this month, and so when we ran it, I started to talk to him the day of, and he ran in this group that I just joined, but he was ahead of me in this race, and we went through down this one section and come back. So he was on his way back, and I was running, and he just gave me this thumbs up in that moment, and it was just like if we didn't know each other, and then just to kind of speak for a second, the crew that watches these races and the people that run in these races is an absolute like it is the coolest thing when everyone is supporting everyone else. Like there is strangers and family members that are cheering on everybody that runs by, and there's people that were out there with hoses spraying just to help people out, and it was such a cool moment for that. But just this moment of this guy I knew from work just giving me that thumbs up as I'm like pushing myself up about the 8 kilometer mark to go up this hill and come back down. It was just such a, it was such a good thing because it helped me push a bit more, but it was also like, just a little bit of belonging that I felt in that moment too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just such a cool, it's one of the coolest atmospheres I think you can be a part of is everybody cheering each other on, even though you are in a battle with yourself, you're only after your own good time. Like in terms of how fast you run the race,
Yeah.
but everybody is so willing to help and be there, cheer you. And everybody has been where you have been. If they're
Mhm.
faster than you, they've been in your shoes, not being as fast as the person lapping them. So, because it's just such a journey. Like, even if they did it in high school, they had to have done it sometime to try to get better at running. But it's such a cool sport because everybody's suffering, but we're all suffering together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
And
Olympic
it's
suffer
it's in
fest.
yeah, and it's encouraging having everybody going through that stuff together,
Yeah.
and yeah, you're right, like everybody has to suck at something first before you
Yeah,
can
you
be good
do.
at it. So as soon as we like remember that, one, we're not comparing ourselves to everybody around us, and two, like you said, we have to get to that point by starting somehow. And in that starting point, it's hard to get started, but then to get from the point where you're signing up for the race to actually doing it, there's a lot of growth there. There's a lot that um, helps, definitely.
Yeah, I am a person, I want to be really good at something when I try it the first time. That's just my personality. I think a lot of people are like that, but there is something about running. There's something about endurance sports that humbles the crap out of you. And you realize that you are not going to be the best. You're not going to be the fastest, but that's really good for you. And
Mhm.
all it does, as you just said, is it makes you grow and it makes you become just a much better, well-rounded person, I think, because you can't be the best right away. You have to start somewhere. That also makes people not want to do it because they're afraid. They're like, well, I'm never going to be that good. Like, why even try? Or that person's so fast. It's like, you don't see the hours and hours and hours and hours that people are putting into this thing to be the best. I
Yeah.
promise you, they're suffering. They just suffered like you are a long time ago.
Yeah, and yeah, we have no idea of knowing what
Mhm.
other people have gone through, what their experience is like, and it's not about. I'm sure it'd be nice to be able to win those things, but it's a different kind of achievement when you're going to
Mhm.
try something you've never tried, or if you've done it before, but then you've got that time you're trying to beat, and you're trying to maybe challenge yourself by the people around you, but not in a way that you're in direct competition, but more, friendly, like,
Yeah.
be beating your old time, or, this race club, and talking to this friend of mine, and, he was pushing himself to gain some points on that 10K race because he was trying to catch up to somebody else, that they were kind of having this playful thing back and forth. And it was very eye-opening when I started to get into this space and start doing these races, and thinking about carrying on with it, because I always thought that, like, somebody has to win the game, right? It's the point is to
Mhm.
win the game, the point is to win the race, or, in the case of, like, first, second, third place, but, like, it's a win when you can do it, right? And just competing against yourself, competing against your beliefs of where you used to come from, or where you, like, what you feel you're capable of, is, like, the hardest part. It was the hardest part for me, was to just be around people that I wasn't used to being around before, and do something that, like, people around me might have thought I didn't belong there, or whatever.
Mhm. But then you start to find community because you start
Yeah,
talking to people, and then you
that's
start
right.
joining run clubs, and you realize that people are just really excited about your own success. And yeah, you're right. It's not like every other sport where it's like a team against a team and somebody actually wins. It's like nobody wins. Well, yeah, you have like the fastest person in the race, but um, I bet you a lot of them are coming back through and like high-fiving everybody else coming through.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
the 10K, the guy that won it, and
mm-hmm,
some would think this was cocky, right? Some would think, my old self, the way I used to be, I would have thought that he was doing this to just rub it in. But I've grown from that. He ran back, an extra kilometer or two, to just kind of encourage people to keep
yeah.
going, right? Like, the people that were in the back half of the race, or that hadn't made to the finish line yet, like, he was kind of running back, and just was going to be with the pace person at the back of the line, to just, like, encourage people. I had my music on, but, like, I could see him talking, and, like, kind of jogging along with people, just to kind of say. And I didn't know this guy had won until we got back, but, like, he was just, you know, I think he was just being a good guy, just helping people
Yeah.
push to get there.
I think he was. He doesn't have to, like, there's other ways to be cocky. Like, he didn't have
Oh
to go
yeah,
back
yeah,
and like continue running. Yeah.
right. But that's, like, where I used to be, in that, like, really negative, mindset that I was in before I started all this, like, development. It was like, I would have seen that in that moment and felt like that was some sort of attack, and that was just where my mind went. But I know this time I was like, that actually, especially when I found out he won, so I was like, okay, this guy got first place, and then he went and was just trying to,
Mhm.
like, clap for people as they pushed themselves through the last kilometer. It was cool.
Quite beautiful. I wonder if he was part of a race where he wanted to win someday, and then the winner did that, and he was like, one day when I win, I'm going to go back through and give everybody encouragement, run back. That's very cool. You don't see that every day. I was in a half marathon where people were dressed up as different types of bugs. And I actually don't remember why. It wasn't like a dress up marathon, but they were all like caterpillars and ladybugs and a bumblebee. And I think there were four women, and three of the women finished quite early. And then they ran all the way back through to go like fetch the bumblebee and like bring the bumblebee over to the finish line. But I remember seeing them like three times, and I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we're going to go get our friend, and then we're going to go back down. I was like, you don't have to do that. You're running extra. But it was camaraderie. It was because they wanted
Yeah,
to encourage the bumblebee friend, because it might have been her first race. And
yeah.
that's going to stick with them forever and help them get back out there. So that's really awesome. And someday, Sean, when you win first place, you could go back.
Yes, I will definitely be clapping for people, and, cheering them on. I've
Yeah.
even said, because there's a January run they do, and I'm not sure I want to do the winter thing. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but in the snow and ice. I said I'd probably help out. If I decided I didn't want to do it, I'd volunteer to help, because then, there's definitely that side of it too, right?
Yeah, there is. You can volunteer to hand out the Gatorade. Those
Yeah,
people
hand out the
are,
stuff, or
bless
just
them.
set it up, be the, I don't know, but one of the pace people, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities, and it's very rewarding in itself.
Mm.
So yeah, we're coming up on time, but I want to hear a pitch from you. So really, we've had a lot of discussion around why people should get into long distance running, but to really nail it and drive it home, why should people join this cult? What's your pitch?
Um, well, for me, it started just by walking, just by getting out in my own thoughts, listening to some music at my heaviest, and it developed from there as I grew more confident, as I started losing weight and started to try jogging and doing between driveways or short distances or timed or whatever version of that. And it was a way for me to work on my development without being held to a time clock or to any other
Mhm.
person, or I could do it in my neighborhood. It was free. I didn't need to sign up for anything for it. So, so many times we hold ourselves back because we don't want to pay for that membership, or we don't want to pay for that coaching, or maybe we can't afford either. And it's like running and walking and all of those things is free. The only thing is whether you have the drive or the push to do it when it's raining, or do it when it's cold, or just do it because you don't want to. But
Mhm.
for me, it was just getting out, going for that walk, and then the walk became much more. And all of a sudden, as time went on, I'm jogging, I'm running, I'm feeling good about distances, and I'm challenging myself to more things. And it was a way for me to kind of carry on that development, adding to it as I got comfortable, and then testing myself when I was ready for that too. And my pitch to anyone is, that is the way to do any lifestyle change. That is the way to do any sort of personal development, is just taking that item, whatever it is we want to work on, break it down that small piece and add to it. So running for me became almost, the same as what I was doing with everything else, except I was outside. I was enjoying, the time away from my chaotic family of small children, and just, feeling good about the progress I was making, and yeah, those moments in the race. And to add to that, the community that is in running, and like we talked about, that cheers people on, that volunteer, that just come out to support and see the finish line, and to watch the clapping, watch the cheering, and watch the environment is so supportive. It's really been a huge eye opener for me.
Mhm. It's beautiful. And I would really encourage people to follow your path of journaling. Journal how you feel. I know it wasn't all about running, but journal how you feel. And then if you take something like a tracker, even like if you have a watch or, on your phone, something to document your running, and then it gets very fun to see your progress. And then it becomes a little bit more of a um like almost a consistency goal. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, so this week I ran 3 miles. What if I made 5 miles next week? So it's like it
Yeah.
becomes a really fun challenge for yourself. And I think that the journaling also is really top notch. It's just, how do I feel? And then check in yourself, and then push yourself a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. You don't have to push yourself to an ultra marathon overnight. Absolutely not.
No.
But just start with a run around the block between driveways, as you said, and then sign up for
Mhm.
your 5K and then your 10K. And then it becomes a little bit addictive. So you'll be fine.
It definitely does. But it's like, if we think about the marathon, or we think about the ultra, or we think about anything on the big picture, we're going to hold ourselves back. We're not going to do it because, like you said, I agree too. We want to win. We want to be good at
Yeah.
things when we get started. We want that first, but we don't know what other people have done to get to that point, and we don't know what we have to do. So it can't be about that marathon. It has to just be about going outside. It has to just be about, I started a bit of a slogan on a lot of my stuff, is just put your shoes on. Don't worry about going for that walk. Don't worry about that part of it. just put the shoes on. Don't even, and then, as you get comfortable putting your shoes on, then maybe you're walking to the mailbox, and then maybe you're down the street, and all of a sudden it's been months and you're feeling good about, running some longer distance. It's just piece it together. And maybe one day you don't feel like you're doing that well, and you're keeping your tracker up, and just putting your shoes on is enough to circle the day on the calendar, and you're still keeping your streak together.
Absolutely. And then adopt a dog, because they'll make sure you get outside and get your steps. My dog, I don't know if you heard the thud. She fell off the couch. I think she fell asleep, and now she came over and she's like, "Am I okay?" You're fine. It scared me. But yeah, it's so accurate. And I love your journey. Good luck in all of your races. We'll keep up on Instagram, and I'm really excited to see where you go. It's just been such an honor to know you, and I'm cheering for you. Like, this is very, very cool stuff, and just keep going.
Yes, thank you, and same to you. I'm following your next big climb, and eager to see where you take your journey as well. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Where can people find you right before we sign off?
My best place is my website, seanrobinson.ca. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, a lot of those platforms, but I reference everything on my website. I'm building it up as we go. I've got a blog. I'm up to three. I think I'm trying to do one a month. Trying to post as much as I can on my website, but most of my tags are all going dry. So at going
Okay,
dry across most of those, or my website.
perfect. Thank you again for your time.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.